King Nat, rocking the scene with you in no flicks from the 90s. So keen, the VHS Club, they're the talk of the town. Breaking it down, spreading nostalgia all around. Moving and grooving to the synth-pop sound. Their insight is so fresh, painting pictures profound. From Pulp Fiction to Clueless, they know it all. The genuine love for movies stands tall. Unfolding memories on that VHS screen, talking about classics like you've never seen. Katie with her charm, Matt with that wit. Together they make the VHS Club legit.
Now, here's, however, where I'd like to make a critical distinction, because Scenes from a Mall was merely a bad movie, a disappointment, whereas our next movie is truly horrendously awful, one of the most cheerless and unpleasant times I've ever had at the movies, and I've been going for a long time. The name of the movie is Nothing But Trouble. It was directed by Dan Aykroyd. It stars him in 2 roles, John Candy in 2 more roles, plus Chevy Chase, Demi Moore, and a group of assorted cretins in other roles. And the fact that this movie was advertised as a comedy says something about the breakdown of the English language.
We're here to make Brian sad tonight.
No.
Yeah, feeling very sad.
Yeah, Brian's
Very
feeling
out of focus.
it's because of the tears. It's because of the tears.
It's so much tears. There we go.
Welcome to the VHS Club. We are Katie and Nat, and this is Brian. If you have not yet met Brian, you need to go over right now. Maybe not right now, but maybe like in an hour. You need to go over in an hour to Cinema Psychos podcast and check out all of the awesomeness over there. Brian had me on to talk about Howard the Duck, so I dropped that link in the description or in the show notes if you're listening later so that you can check out that episode. But we're excited because Brian made us watch this movie, and now we're all going to talk about it.
This was apparently, like, I feel bad because you hated watching Howard the Duck.
I did hate watching
it. This one to watch too.
No, I feel differently about this one. It's okay.
I vaguely remember Howard the Duck. I remember being like, this is so stupid. Why is my dad making me watch this? And my dad being like, but it's awesome. And I'm like, yeah. I can kind of see it, but also kind of see why I don't like this. Yeah. So I need to rewatch it because I haven't seen it since it came out.
It was painful. It was extremely.
It was painful. It was painful.
I mean, I did see him in Endgame.
Yeah, Howard the Duck was an Endgame. That's true.
Different Howard the Duck. One that was not trying to have sex with a female, a human female.
I mean, is it different? I mean, maybe
it was problematic.
Kevin, what's his name? Kevin Feige would just like, we're not doing this yet.
Yeah.
No.
We'll just put him in Endgame because everybody was there. I'm like, I still think Alpha Flight was there. Canadian Avengers team.
So let's kick this one off with Paul's comment. So shout out to Paul who's hanging out in our live studio audience. Paul says, I realized watching this that I had seen it. I blocked it from my memory.
Oh, so, come on, Paul.
That is that's where I was at. So I definitely had seen this one, but I don't think I didn't hate this movie. I'll start off by saying I did not hate this movie. I don't remember when I watched it, but I've definitely seen it before. I'm getting that old. Apparently I was like, where have I seen this? It was like waves of memory, but not full memory. So I watched it as if it was the first time, and Nat normally always has seen absolutely everything and hadn't seen this one. So we're buckle up, friends. We're here for a first time.
I very distinctly remember my parents renting this movie. I remember the box cover. I remember I watched the kids movie that we also rented that night and not this one. So I haven't actually seen it.
Until today.
Though interestingly enough, in my commentary while watching it that I was giving Katie, she was like, "Oh, that's exactly what Dan Aykroyd was going for." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I'm on the same page in the craziness of, maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
Peter and Dan Aykroyd, Canadian icons.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, for me at least, I told you this before we started rolling. So, you know, I grew up with HBO as kind of the perpetual babysitter, and Nothing But Trouble, I kid you not, for some reason, I really think it was monetarily, that HBO played this almost on a loop in the early 90s. Like, this played all the time.
One more time.
Well, I really think it was like, this movie did so bad at the box office, so to get our money's worth, we're just going to put it up on HBO. We don't care what other schlock is playing, and this is just play. So, like, growing up, like, I love this movie. I still love the movie, even rewatch it. This was the first time I'd watched it in maybe like 10 years, rewatching it for this show. So, like, I still like it, but at the same time, I see the problems. And especially when you look at the behind the scenes of this movie, you realize, like, oh yeah, what people are saying is true. That clip before the show ran of Roger Ebert, I just gotta say, I hate him. Have always hated that man.
He often had a bad opinion. Yeah.
Well, he just, you know, I know what right now we're looking at this very square image, but like behind me is like all the horror movie stuff, and that man always hated my genre.
Yeah, he doesn't like a horror. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't like horror.
Most genres. He liked basically Oscar movies. Like movies that were like vying for Oscar. He didn't like any rom-coms. He didn't like any comedies, any slapstick, any horror. Like, he was really just like, if it's going to be nominated for an Oscar, I love it.
Here's the thing though. The horror movies are what, I don't know, made Hollywood and, like, you know, put money in people's pockets. Because
still do.
That's what people, and they still do. They always make money. But yeah, I realize why there are problems with it while we watch this.
All right, well, let's back up, because I feel like part of our audience certainly have not seen
Nobody's
this one.
seen this.
I know, no, Josh hasn't. Paul did his homework and has done the
movie.
Yeah, so we'll switch it up and we'll let Brian give the. It's okay to read it off IMDb, as I know you sometimes do, but give us your quick 2-minute, summary of this film.
Okay. So, Nothing But Trouble is a quirky comedy horror movie that stars three legends in comedy: Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, and John Candy.
Demi Moore.
Basically,
sorry.
Yeah, and Demi Moore's in there too. She's
she's not really a queen.
Funny in it.
She is funny.
But
she tries to be funny, and it's. But anyway,
her timing is still good. But whatever. She's not important in the movie, really. It's the time.
It's early 90s. But basically, it's about how Chevy Chase plays Christopher Thorne, who basically is only famous for making a newsletter about publishing, which I thought was kind of hilarious. And he decides that he's going to take this new girl who lives in his building on a trip to Atlantic City, but unfortunately is sidewinded by two Brazilianaires. I kid you not when I tell you this. And they end up going on a high-speed chase because the Brazilianaires, being Brazilianaires, think that, hey, traffic laws don't really matter. And they end up in Vulcanvania, and John Candy pulls them over and takes them to this wacky, bizarre, backwoods / somewhat cultish West Virginia-ish neighborhood.
Yep.
That is literally the most beautiful set design I've ever seen in a movie. But it's all run by Dan Aykroyd doing his best hillbilly / Freddy Krueger-esque character.
Yep.
Centurion.
Like,
he's over 100. They mention he's like 100+ years old.
Yeah. And basically, it's literally wacky, goofy stuff from there. You know, he wants Chevy Chase to either die or marry his daughter, who's also granddaughter played by John Candy, because John Candy's in drag in this.
Yep.
And on top of that,
Good drag.
what else? Oh yeah, there's 2 giant man babies, and I don't mean that saying that they're man babies like as a
Like
I said that they're
we would
literal,
envision today. Yeah.
literal giant babies
Yep.
Yeah.
in diapers. But one of them played by Dan Aykroyd, and hilarity ensues.
Can I just point out that watching this, I'm like, they look like Sloth from the Goonies.
They 100% do.
But his ugly older brothers, who are much more immature than him.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I said
how
this-
did they make Sloth unadorable? Which again, I'm maybe the only person that thinks Sloth is
Maybe you
super
are.
adorable, but
I feel like that was my. Okay, so here was my issue with the movie, or like my reason why I didn't love this movie, because I feel like I said this to Paul earlier today. I'm like, I feel like most people would either hate this movie or love this movie. Like I feel like it brings about strong feelings, but I feel like I sit directly in the middle, and the reason why is because I kind of just wanted it to be a horror movie. Like I didn't want the all of the prosthetics and the makeup. Like I didn't want him to be this kind of creepy, gross, like, you know, makeup filled character. And I didn't want the man baby twins on the set, but I did want to see like real people who you're just like, oh, these people are gonna kill everyone. Like I wanted it to be more of like a scary horror. It could have even had funny moments in it, but that was the part that I couldn't get over. It was like, it was so absurd and so grotesque that it was too much for me and for my style. So I went through the movie just kind of wanting it to be different from that perspective. Like I liked the storyline, but I didn't like the layers on it. But then later, and I dropped this into the show notes or the description, depending on where you're watching or listening to this. There was an absolutely incredible, I would challenge and have everyone watch this through. It was an hour-long review. It was actually a video essay is what it was called, about this movie. And it was like in defense of this movie. And it talks in detail about how like the vision of this movie, you know, Dan Aykroyd and his brother Peter Aykroyd like put together this movie and like put their heart and soul into this movie, and got decimated. Like this was the only movie that he directed, and it was like never again. And it affected the careers of like all of these actors. So it got decimated, but he pulled off what he set to pull off. Like they talk a lot about
super famous, but okay.
Well, they talk in
Like,
this.
I'm like, Tupac is in this, and this was before he was super famous.
But they do actually talk about like the trajectory of, they were super famous going into this movie, but they actually do talk about like the movies that they did after this, and it was like a down, and who knows, maybe it would have been anyway, but it was interesting. Like he created exactly what he wanted to create. He hired like only the best possible in business. As Brian was saying, like he created a set like no other. He had like the most famous costume designers, the most famous makeup team, like Academy Award winning, like most expensive famous people, and in many cases talk them into being in this movie. And it was exactly what he wanted to create. So like in some ways, that's really admirable. Like even if I don't like aesthetically like it, it doesn't mean that it wasn't brilliantly made.
He had Dean Cundy, who was the cinematographer for Steven Spielberg and Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, this wasn't a movie that didn't have the vision behind it. I would say the biggest thing, and Katie, you kind of alluded to this, is just there's a tonal problem with this movie.
Yeah.
There is 100% a tonal problem where, you know, it wants to be horror, but at the same time, it's trying to like wink, nudge, say we're not really horror. And trying to combine those two genres, comedy and horror, is literally one of the toughest things to do.
Yeah.
For every scary movie that's out there, there are about 1,000 nothing but troubles. Like that's the thing. It's a difficult feat. Comedy alone is a difficult feat.
Yeah.
You know, horror is very forgiving, but this was hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie, so I hadn't seen it. Mm-hmm. This is something I saw my parents had rented. I watched the kids movie. I didn't see it. I saw it today for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I was telling Katie, kind of like live texting her while I'm watching this, and my opinion of the movie is apparently exactly what Dan and Peter Aykroyd were trying to get across in the first place.
Hmm.
So from that perspective, so what they were trying to say is that there is, say, like, to put it very plainly, like the white guys, no offense, like, but rich white men, rich white American men, but rich white men anywhere really, like, have this sense of entitlement, and they are shocked and surprised that, you know, blowing a stop sign, as they do in this movie, is the be all end all of trouble for some people. And they're like, but that doesn't apply to me. How can I pay you off? Like, and they get in severe trouble in this movie for blowing a stop sign, not for having a high speed chase, not for, you know, like all these other things, but it's, you know, you blew a stop sign in our town
and you're a banker, right? Like,
down on you.
The preconceived notion.
You're
so it's turned on its head. And it, you know, becomes this kind of like, he's literally, if you haven't seen this, spoilers, and we're sorry, but he's
movie came out in 1991. I think you're fine.
Yeah, we're past the spoilers. But he's literally like, at one point, his choice is you are sentenced to death, or you can marry the granddaughter that he doesn't want to marry. But you're right, like it's meant to actually be this commentary on the justice system, and it's based on a true story of his experience in it. So
hello Aykroyds for like commenting on something that we didn't as a patriarchy recognize as an issue until like now.
Yeah, definitely not as white people.
I have a question for you about, do you think that this movie would do well if it was released now, in light of everything that we have going on?
No.
Like, you don't think it would do well?
Yeah, I don't think it would either.
So what I loved about it, so the delivery, like the comedic delivery in the movie, the physicality, the deadpan dad jokes. Like, at one point, Chevy Chase and Demi Moore are being dragged down this hallway to go to their like cell/bedroom, and there's like a million clocks in the hallway, and he's like, oh, my watch is broken. I wonder what time it is. Like, the deadpan dad joke of it all.
It happens.
It's so funny. And the way he delivers it is like a dead art nowadays. Like, there are so few people who can do that well now, and it's not common in cinema anymore, I personally think. So that, it's brilliant. And it also just shows, like, these, like, people in a position of power within our society construct, don't take things seriously. That's why we have all these sort of dad jokes, and that's why we have this over-the-top absurd scenery and environment. Like, they're in a completely, also simultaneously, I'm like, where's the FBI? Like, the FBI, the behavioral,
the FBI's in on it.
They're all in on it. Everyone's in on it. Even when they
BAU, where is Hotch? Where is Dr. Spencer Reed? Like, this is being shut down. They existed in 1991, right?
But that's
they're in on the joke.
That's like the whole. I mean,
joke, but
that's why the scene with Tupac and like the rap group is so fantastic, because they're doing drugs. They're breaking like multiple laws, and they come in and they're like, they do like a song for him, and he's like, fine, like, let them go.
That song slaps.
It was incredible.
I'm like, that's a good song.
It's such a good song.
That's
powerful today. Like, to say that a group of black men who get caught by the police get off because
the white guy gets sentenced to death.
And the white guy blows a stop, which is like, most cops like won't even stop that unless they need to get their quota up at the end of the month. And he's been sentenced to death. And so like that, what's that horrible word we hate? Dichotomy? All the stupid snobs at university are like, the dichotomy of, anyways, whatever. It works.
It works in this case.
like that contrast between the black men getting off and the white men being punished, like, even today, that would be brilliant to see on screen.
To be fair, I think it's mostly the reason why he is targeted as much as he is. I don't think it has anything really to do with the stop sign. I think it has to do with the his hubris, and on
asshole?
top of that,
Yeah.
he's an asshole. And on top of that,
Yeah.
he's a banker.
It's just because
He's a banker.
banker.
Yeah. He's a
Well,
banker.
He's
excuse
6'5"
me.
in finance.
He's a financial publisher with a Microsoft Word newsletter.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing I want to mention is like I was watching. I'm like, why is he famous for a Microsoft Word newsletter?
Yep.
Like how many people have newsletters now? Like that they just send out on email.
Yeah.
Actually, apparently it's coming back.
It's back.
Newsletters coming back.
Yeah.
Apparently lucrative, and it's coming back, and it's lucrative.
Well, I
Which
should
like,
apparently subscribe to Thorns Weekly.
He's gonna be famous. He's gonna be famous again. Yeah, I mean, and there is the whole maybe this is actually where the issue with the movie lays. Like, is that maybe it's trying to be too many things, because you have like the undertone story where it's trying to be social commentary, it's trying to be like really poignant in what it's saying, and I think it works to some level on that level.
It does, because that's what I got out of it.
And then it's trying to be funny and horror, which I don't think it pulls off. And it's trying to be really absurd and weird, which is everything that the Aykroyds are. And I think some people like and respect that, and some people are like, this is too much. Like it's too weird and it's too big. And I mean, and so all of those things together, I think, and I think part of it is there's an expectation with that set of actors that was not satisfied upon. Like, you watch the movie and you're expecting Chevy Chase to be Chevy Chase, and you're expecting John Candy to be a certain way. John Candy is completely different in these roles, in these two roles, than he is in anything else that he's in. So like, if you're used to like
his delivery is the same.
But if you're
Which
used to
I
like
love.
Home Alone John Candy, and you're used to like John Candy is like this like pure
Uncle Buck
likable uncle, like I mean, even Uncle Buck, where he's like mean, he's not mean. Like it, I don't know. It's a very different character than
It's. I mean, this is, if you look at him in like SCTV, this is that's a different version of John Candy than what you get in this. This is it's a different thing. The thing that I want to mention about this is that, and I mentioned this in the comment before the during the countdown, this movie was inspired not only by Dan Aykroyd's travels, in that he actually did end up in a backwoods type of
I want to know that story more.
With a kangaroo court, but it actually was inspired by the Aykroyd brothers, I believe, going to see the movie Hellraiser in 1987. And I find that hilarious because one, Hellraiser is one of my absolute favorite films, like across the board. And he was so taken aback by how ridiculous the concept was that he thought, well, I can make a horror movie that's also a comedy, because he viewed it as a comedy. Right. So like it's interesting how it had its origination from horror, but couldn't quite cross the barrier there. And I could see where there's parallels, right? The gross out humor, the nose and the penis nose too, which hilarious. I'm sorry.
The poo and the penises. I'm like, I could.
It smells like Sao Paulo.
Like 10-year-old kids are like, you know, like poop jokes, fart jokes, penis jokes are super funny. And I'm like, I can see that if I, like, when I was a kid, if I had watched this, I would have thought it was hilarious. As an adult, I'm like,
that's me. I thought it was hilarious.
Brian's like, I still think it's funny.
I still.
So Josh asks, don't expect Barf from Spaceballs from John Candy in this movie.
Do not.
No, it's not. This is John Candy in the midst of his warm, cuddly Home Alone phase, and it doesn't fit. That's the problem. It's the wrong time period.
What? This made me think of, what is it? Tyler Perry's Medea character.
Oh,
like Diaries of Black Woman, except that came out in like 2005 or 2006. I'm like, this is very precursor that.
I have to say, like
John Candy playing multiple characters in the movie, being the guy in a dress, like the straight guy in a dress, and like, I mean, it has a whole other connotation apparently like it definitely does in Black Hollywood, where a lot of up and coming successful Black actors were kind of forced to play these types of characters where it's like, you're a man in a dress. It was very, anyways, it's terrible. that's a whole other podcast. But to say, it did make me think, I'm like, oh, this probably inspired that kind of thing.
Well, he apparently didn't even want to be in this movie. I think he does like I will say like an incredible job in it, because he's playing
He does.
two very
He's
different
super
characters.
funny.
He plays them
Yeah.
both really well, and the woman that he is playing in this role doesn't even talk. So he's doing it with only like facial expressions, which is difficult if you're not trying to be like his kind of funny. Like it so
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a different
Well, he did this because he almost was Louis Tully
yeah.
in Ghostbusters, and he
Yeah.
turned that down. So
Mhm.
he thought, I'm like, well, the next time Dan Aykroyd comes with me with a script, and he's like, this is the guy who helped write Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I think I'm going to jump to it. And I think Chevy was kind of in the same boat
Yeah.
of like, this is the
Yeah.
buddy. I don't think Chevy wanted to be in this movie
No,
at
yeah,
all.
he didn't.
And it
no.
kind of reads like, I know you mentioned before, like the dad jokes. I don't think that's dad jokes. I think that's called "I don't want to be here" jokes.
I did kind of in
Improv
this day and
jokes.
age,
Yeah.
from like the female lens of 2024, I'm like, this is just a movie for Chevy Chase to molest Demi Moore, who's
Yeah.
20 years younger than him.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it.
The whole Fletch series is nothing but that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That, and and that's where I kept going, and I'm
It
like,
makes me
ah.
so
But I'm like, I have to watch
sad
it in the
about that.
historical lens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Chevy Chase nowadays is a terrible human being.
Chevy
He
Chase has
been for the past like 20 years.
always been a terrible
Always been.
person, which is really a
Well,
serious
his-
bummer, because he's
Yeah.
like an incredible comedian, and like there are
Yeah.
many movies
His
of his
physical
that I
comedy's
love, and it's really hard to reconcile those two
I mean,
things.
and
'cause-
again, Fletch, like, you are healed, my son. Like, it's
Yeah.
so funny, but
yeah.
his substance abuse has led him to be a very openly terrible person.
Well, and giving him a lot of
yeah,
fame and money. Again, like if you look at his career, even leading up to this movie, he was doing like a movie a year, and not just
yeah.
a movie a year,
Yeah.
like a big budget paycheck movie a year, where they were like, Chevy Chase is incredible. So like coming into this, like he, like drug abuse or not, he thought that he was the shit. Like he was coming into this
Yeah.
being like, I'm the biggest deal about this movie. Like I'm doing this
Yeah.
favor for my friend. Like he would have definitely had a chip on his shoulder, even if he wasn't already a jackass and addicted to all kinds of stuff. So it was, and Paul
Yeah.
says he was verbally abusive to everyone on set, tried to speak on
Not
Demi's
surprised.
behalf about her skimpy costume. Yeah, like he was just
it's
miserable
true.
for
She
people
was
to be
wearing. She's supposed to be some powerful New York lawyer who's
Mm-hmm.
living in a penthouse apartment downtown New York, like Manhattan or whatever. I don't know the posh areas of New York. I've seen Gossip Girl kind of, but not really. Whatever. I apologize, but she's wearing these like tight little mini dresses and like barely no clothes. I'm like,
Mhm.
that is so
She wears
stupid.
the coat for like 5 seconds.
She does wear the coat for
It's
5
not even a
seconds.
coat. It's like a bolero. It's
Yeah,
like just
that's what I'm saying. It's
sleeves,
there for
you know?
5 seconds.
And it's so like, and again, from our lens from nowadays, where we're allowed to have a voice because we're just done with the patriarchy as women. I apologize, but super over it. That's insulting and stupid. And she did have comedic chops, and she does have very good acting chops, and
Mhm.
we've kind of just pushed that aside.
Yeah.
For the fact that she's cast, and like the only reason she was probably cast was because Chevy Chase is like, she's hot. I'll have her as my co-star. And he was
On top of that, I
teasing
think
her.
there was something to, this is the movie she did right after Ghost.
Yeah.
So like,
which is so ridiculous. Why
Yeah.
would
I
she
think-
read Ghost and then read this, and then how was she forced into this?
I
You know,
think she
like-
was
Ugh.
filming Ghost. I don't think Ghost had come out.
Ghost came out in 90.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
but
take it
she
back.
was
All right.
more famous before Ghost came out.
Mhm.
She was part
Yes.
of. She was part of the Brat Pack, which there's a documentary about it.
I have yet to see it.
I haven't
didn't
seen
see
that
it.
yet. Yeah, it's on my to watch list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew McCarthy, like, you know, like one of the infamous Brat Pack guys. And it's funny because seeing the Brat Pack documentary, which I recommend, they do include the women in it. But back when I was growing up, the women were never part of the Brat Pack. Like Demi Moore and Ali Sheedy and like all of them, and like Sarah Jessica Parker, they were kind of considered the hanger-oners. The Brat Pack was solely just the men. But I do love that Andrew McCarthy is like, no, it includes these women.
Includes everyone, yeah, exactly.
Includes everyone because
they were part of our crew.
too.
Yeah, and it's true, but yeah, it was anyways, but like Demi Moore was Brat Pack famous well before this. So I'm like, why is she here? Like,
because everyone loves Dan Aykroyd. Like, is really why everyone was here.
This is peak Dan Aykroyd.
This is
That's
peak
the
Dan
thing.
Aykroyd.
Yeah.
He's also like renowned for being the polar opposite of Chevy Chase. He's like beloved, apparently a total sweetheart. He's super Canadian, you guys. He's
so Canadian.
He sent apology cards to everyone on this. He felt so bad that this had this actually also took a huge toll on his health. Like, he did not want to direct this movie. He didn't want to play multiple roles in it, so he ended up having to play like some of the other roles as well. He tried to find a director. He literally only took the directorial role because it was like a cost savings and they couldn't find anyone else, and he wanted to be able to hire
I think he wanted
the best
John Landis
possible. Yeah, he wanted John Landis, and then he wanted John Hughes first, who wouldn't direct something he didn't write, and then he wanted John Landis, who did not like the script at all. Yeah. So then he was like, okay, I guess like we'll just save money here and I'll do it myself. But it
the thing is though,
him.
if you had someone like John Landis, even though he didn't like this script, it would have gone 1,000 times better because it's in John Landis's wheelhouse. Yeah. You know, in this, you know, around the same time this movie came out, you had John Landis, who made Innocent Blood, which also bombed at the box office. So I mean, it's in the same vein, but I think like he would have been able to reel in Dan Aykroyd, and that's like, for me, the biggest problem with this movie is that Dan Aykroyd is let loose. Yeah. And every idea that popped in his head was on the screen. Yeah. So it's like,
and I can vouch for writers
when you don't have a director who can rein in those ideas and can like say, okay, yes, we know that you want to have a guillotine made out of snowplows, but like,
now I'm finding this way funnier than when I watched
we need it though? What does it add to the story? That's what it, like, as a filmmaker, that's what I always go back to is, what does this add to the story? Is that necessary? Although I would say Mr. Bone Stripper is hilarious. I love that whole, every scene that's in, I crack up.
Oh yeah, that was great.
It went from like a conveyor belt to like a roller coaster.
A roller coaster,
like,
that's right.
I was like, wait, when did that happen?
I don't know.
Don't ask many questions about it.
The little train on the table. So these were all actually like ideas that came from the like cast and crew. But the train on the dining room table, I was like, I would have one of those in my house right now if my husband would allow me to. Like, like a little pickle train. I would 100% have a pickle train. I would be.
Oh my god, when the gherkin hits the Brazilianaire in the face and that's his final straw, I was like, that's amazing. Yeah. Which that guy, I can't remember his name, but he play like the. Oh, I'm like, isn't he?
Taylor
like,
Negron.
Okay.
Taylor Negron. Yeah.
Well, he sort of resurfaced, and he was in like every Disney Channel show. Not that in Canada we had Disney unless you had satellite. And
so we've heard.
Rich, but, So we've heard.
I've heard you've had this thing called Disney Channel.
But he was in all of those Disney Channel shows as the like not gay, like, you know, concierge or butler or like wise.
I wanted more of them in the movie. Like I know.
I thought that
they
was
were
the trouble. Yeah. I thought that was the trouble part when I
this movie was apparently renamed. So it was originally named after the town. What was the town name again, Brian?
It's called Welcome to Vulcanvania.
Welcome to Vulcanvania, which would have been better. I could not, I don't know about you, I could not remember the title of this movie. Every time I like looked it up to do research, I was like, wait, nothing but and I like couldn't think of the word trouble, and I would be typing
terrible,
things. It's so bad.
Marketing.
Yeah.
The marketing of this movie, again, just
awful.
because they don't know what to do with it. And this
Yeah.
is something that
Yeah.
I've seen. Actually, we were talking about this on the last episode I did for my podcast. We talked about the movie Wolf and said that the problem is the studio's like, hey, you got a horror movie or you've got an art house film, and I can't put this into one bucket or the other. And honestly, Nothing But Trouble suffers the same problem.
Yeah.
Is that they were like, well, is this a horror movie or is it a comedy? I don't know. How do we sell it? And you know, I think if they just called it Welcome to Vulcanvania rather than Nothing But Trouble, which is a terrible title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the movie.
And something, and it's something that I've seen in movies all the time where they pick one line
Yeah.
from the movie
Which
and
they
say,
added in after. They added
Of
in
course
after
they did.
because they wanted to change the title, and they were like, "Oh no, we don't have." So they actually had her like not ad lib,
they
do
did
a
ADR.
voiceover, and they
Yeah.
added it back in. It was like, that's
I
crazy.
think if they had named it after the town,
Yeah, exactly.
it would have had like a niche and it would have become a cult classic.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because this has the hallmarks of a cult
does have the
classic,
hallmarks of it,
except nobody's heard of it.
Yeah. I think it is a cult classic. I really do, because the people who do find it
It
like
should
a
be.
true cult classic, in
Yeah.
my opinion, has that core fan base. And I really believe that you know, the people who are like me, who are like, yeah, we grew up with this movie, we get it, and we're just like, yeah, it's got problems. But it's still like the nostalgia goggles pop on. You know what
And
I mean?
it's so absurd that
Yes.
So I had a couple of thoughts watching this. One, like, oh, they stumbled through a cult, got a ticket, the cult reacted like a cult. I'm like, and that could be funny. That and I don't mean that cults are funny, because they're not. But I mean,
it
like,
has the
there could be
potential, yeah.
more comedy. There's more potential to comedy because we tend to make cults in our minds as a society slightly unrealistic, even though they're very realistic.
Yeah.
But and like, or it could be like the most recent season of Fargo, where it goes like, you know, like the true American kind of, I guess, also cult, but that's an outside perspective.
Right.
Where that would be really dark and
Yeah.
too dark and almost prophetic of Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, it could have
'cause,
been
like,
a dark
Yeah.
comedy. It's a good
Very
point. It could have been a
early
really
days
good
of that.
horror or a really good dark comedy. Yeah, I
like
think
it
it just
could
was
have,
stuck.
yeah, it could have been like horror comedy. It could have been like super dark. And like they didn't quite find, and you know what? I would love to get my hands on the unedited story end script
Yeah.
Mhm.
and have somebody put that and redo it. You know, like
I
think it could be very interesting to redo nowadays.
I don't think it actually was, like, to Brian's point earlier, and again please take a moment and swing by and grab that link to watch this much better than what we could say video essay. But he talks about basically the same thing happened in the writing and the creation of Ghostbusters. So Dan Aykroyd actually wrote Ghostbusters and wrote it like he went this man doing this video essay went through like the original script and concept of Ghostbusters, which is nothing to like what Ghostbusters is now, but the elements of it are the same. So like the concept of like the Ghostbusters team, the car, the characters to some extent, like everything that makes Ghostbusters
Some of the jokes.
special and unique and awesome comes from Dan Aykroyd. But again, on that one, Dan was like, here's my script. And then the team was like, hard no, we're going to edit this down and make it different.
That's what makes filmmaking.
And that's
an
what makes
art form,
exactly.
Is
yeah.
that you can have someone like an Ivan Reitman look at the script and go, yeah, this is great. I'm glad that in a cocaine-fueled fever dream, you came up with this idea of Ghostbusters. But like, it's not going to work. Like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with like Stephen King in the 80s with Maximum Overdrive. You know, the man obviously was on some substances and like wrote that and then decided, I'm going to direct it. So it's like, that's the problem. Just because you write the thing and are unfettered in your ideas doesn't mean you can't have another person come in and say, listen, I love this concept and I think there's parts that are going to work. But from a third party, this is what's not going to work. This is what will. And that's the collaborative nature of filmmaking that gives us really good classics. It's never one person.
Yeah.
No.
It's never one person.
Well, and what
Again,
was
editing.
it was a perfect storm though, which is it's kind of cool in some ways. So I don't know, maybe it's just that mindset that I'm in today, but I think it's kind of cool in that this was this really weird, perfect moment in time where Dan Aykroyd was powerful enough that they were the studio was just like, here's a whole bunch of money and we're distracted with all these other things. And Dan was like, okay, I'm going to make what I want. And no one, like at any point, I guess like they realized later, like during the making of the movie, that it was like crazy over budget and that things were going wrong. But they were so worried about another movie that they were worried about. It was
on fire of the vanities.
Yeah. And it was too late to do anything that they were like, okay, it's fine. Like, so he literally,
Can I
like,
just say,
there will never be another moment like this where someone is able to make a giant Hollywood level movie however they wanted to make it, and it just got released. Like, it's crazy.
Can I just say, this is very, like, in my mind, I just had this aha moment. Dan Aykroyd is the Canadian Orson Welles.
Oh my God.
Orson Welles. He might just
because Orson Welles did.
Now that I think about it.
Yeah, because Orson Welles did a very big budget movie, spent all the money, told them it was going to be Treasure Island, and it ended up being Henry II-4, which is the Shakespeare play Henry IV Part 2, but we say Henry II-4. Don't ask me why, not British. So close, but not quite. And the reviews for the movie, which is actually one of the best tellings of Henry II-4, but the reviews were like, Wells is running around the set like an armadillo in armor. And it was like panicked. Like the studio was like, this is not what we thought what was happening. This is not what we wanted. This is not doing well. It has done well historically, but it was so bad.
Wells is like, nailed it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Was
this before he was doing his alcoholic champagne commercials? Of the 80s. Was this before that?
I think so.
Yeah. This was still black and white film.
Okay.
Yeah. So before the 80s.
I mean, I love his drunken champagne commercials. If you,
oh my God,
you haven't seen them, they're hilarious. But you are right. I mean, Dan Aykroyd is kind of that guy. He's now
got away with it.
He's now shilling conspiracy theories and his Crystal Skull vodka. Yeah. Good on him.
Good on him.
It's actually very good vodka. Like,
I've never had it.
For potato vodka. Yeah. Good old Yuki boy from Canada. But anyways, just saying.
I love it. All right, I'm gonna swing over here because I really wanted to. So on Brian's show, they read off other people's reviews of these movies, and I found this one that I just thought was fantastic. So I'm gonna share it with you all here. But so Pomatovich, thank you for letting us borrow this without your permission, just says, just stumbled upon this on cable, so like you, Brian. Had almost forgot this existed. Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, Demi Moore, and John Candy in one of the worst mashups ever made. Part comedy, part Twilight Zone horror movie. John Candy dressed as a woman. Dan Aykroyd as a 100-plus-year-old ghoul with a penis for a nose. A roller coaster that murders traffic violators. In the middle of the film, for no reason, there's a musical number with Digital Underground and Tupac Shakur. Yes, this was Tupac's first film debut. Oh, and I forgot that Dan Aykroyd also plays a giant junkyard baby. Truly one of the worst films ever made and a blight on the career of all involved, even Chevy Chase. No. A perfect film for how did this get made?
I'm now obsessed with this movie.
I know. It makes me want to watch it again.
Listen. To this reviewer, I would just say, you can enjoy filet mignon and you can enjoy a greasy hamburger at the same time. It's very possible. Okay. Yeah. One man's, cinematic masterpiece and a penis-nosed one is for another person. Like, come on, Yeah. No, I love this movie. I love it for what it is. I think it's hilarious. I also think it's terrible, and you can those are not mutually exclusive emotions.
Together,
There's crossover there.
I do now think, having sat with it, I love this movie, and it's fucking terrible.
I know. That is where I'm at. That's where I'm at. After talking it through.
It's not.
Yeah.
There's a movie called The Room, which I'm sure any
Yes.
movie cultist. It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life.
Mhm.
And every time I think about it, I'm like, it's so funny. And I quote it all the time. It's so bad. It's one of the worst
So
movies
bad.
ever made.
Mhm.
But it is one of the best movies ever made, which we will talk about. But that is like, it is a multiple episode podcast.
I have covered that one, and we actually we covered that one early on in our podcast. And we also had
I'm watching that.
we had a
ASAP.
filmmaker who, I kid you not, was making a documentary about The Room and was sued by Tommy Wiseau.
Oh, no.
And we got to interview him right after the injunction was lifted.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, I'm
And
gonna
he
double check
gave us
that one out.
basically the lowdown on who Tommy is, because there's a whole mystique about this man's backstory.
He's like
Yeah.
some oligarch's like dumb son, right? Like who
Something
just
along
was
those
lost-
lines.
Yeah,
partially maybe
yeah.
a vampire, who knows. But the
Careful now,
point
we
is-
don't want to be sued.
well, to be fair,
Let's
it didn't work
call
out
him a
too well for
vampire because
Tommy.
that will work out easier. No,
Yeah.
I no. Oh god, that movie's iconic. There's
I love
nothing I
it.
don't love about how bad that movie
But-
is.
You know what the thing is, though, and here's one thing I would say in defense
And
of
that's
Nothing
this
But
movie.
Trouble. What I
Yeah.
would say in defense of Nothing But Trouble is I have seen some terrible movies in my time that are not shot competently, that are not
Mhm.
edited competently, that have
Yeah.
performances that are piss poor
Yep.
and lack any originality.
Yep.
And the one thing you cannot take away from Nothing But Trouble is that it is competently shot.
Yep.
It is
Yep.
competently acted.
It's beautifully made.
It's
Yeah.
beautifully
It's
made.
beautifully made.
And you know what? You cannot say that there isn't passion and originality in this
Yep.
movie. There absolutely is. I have seen more in current cinema copycat
Oh god, yeah.
crap.
Mhm.
I would love another
Saltburn.
Nothing But Trouble.
I know.
Yeah. Oh my god. Don't
Which-
get me started on Saltburn, please.
I have to say, I love the cinematography of Saltburn. The
That's all it
actors
is.
did a great job. I love the music, but it is Brideshead Revisited with a sprinkling of Talented Mr. Ripley for the younger people. But
For the younger.
and I do love that the children have no idea what either of those things are. But I was like, it's literally Brideshead Revisited. Yeah, we've seen this. Like, I've read this 20,000 times for school. I
Yeah.
get it. But
Well-
nobody else got, like, the kids
No.
didn't get it. And I was like, which
my
makes it
favorite-
brilliant. But
my
it is
favorite
copyism.
My favorite was that people I know immediately when that movie came out were like, "Oh my god, it's so shocking! Look at how shocking it is." I'm
not.
like, what the fuck you talking about? I'm like,
You've never,
I'm like,
so you've
have
never
you
watched
seen
the movie
Requiem
The
for a
Job?
Dream? Have you seen that movie? Because that movie, that's a movie you only watch once every 10 years
Yeah.
to
Have
make
you
sure that
seen
you're alive.
Trainspotting?
Yeah.
Have
Yes.
you seen Train Spotting? You
Yeah.
don't want to see that baby crawling on the poo ceiling
No.
again. Like that's
That's-
it one time.
that's what I'm
once,
saying, like-
once
like-
ever.
I own Requiem for a Dream just so that I can watch it once every 10 years to be like,
A reality check.
yeah, that's terrible. That's shocking. And I even said that on Threads to people. They were like, "Oh, what did you think of Saltburn? Was it shocking?" I'm like, one, who the hell in their right mind was like,
Think
yes,
it's
let's
shocking.
have this guy have sex with the ground and not break the shot for 20 goddamn minutes? And I'm just like, whole time I was watching, I'm just going like, can they cut the shot, please?
I thought it was
You're
kind
like,
of
I'm done.
amazing.
I'm
No,
done.
it
But-
wasn't. I'm done. It was. I'm bored.
I loved it.
Mm.
But it wasn't, there was nothing new to it. And I
Yeah.
mean, in all fairness, the writer and director didn't make anything new about it. Like, this movie took place
Yeah.
in like the mid-aughts. Like, she's like, I know this isn't new. I'm putting it back in that time when this would have been new.
Mhm.
Like, she
Didn't
did
she
that on
make
purpose.
Promising Young Woman? That was what she
She
did.
did. That was amazing.
That was great. I liked that, and I thought I was going to get that.
Obsessed
Instead, I
with that
got
movie.
Joker having sex with the ground for like a little bit.
No, they don't know he's the Joker yet.
Yeah, he was the Joker
No.
in the Batman.
Well, I mean, he was laughing behind a cell. But anyways, all that to say that copyism, like, this movie is kind of a landmark in its weird, twisted,
There is nothing
obscure,
else like
unknown
it.
way.
That's for sure. There's nothing else like it. It would be very
It's so
hard to
stupid.
copy because, again, no one in their right mind at a studio would allow you to make it
No.
unless it was like an independent production, in which case you couldn't afford to copy it because it costs so
No.
much money to make. It was just
The thing that
I
is
would
I
love,
can see this being
again.
remade, though. I can see it being remade.
Yeah.
eh,
I would love somebody, you know what? We need another Canadian, maybe Dan Aykroyd plus Sarah Polley. Could you
Sarah
imagine?
Paulson.
Oh,
yeah.
that would be cool.
That would be
Oh,
cool.
if they remade this, oh,
Yeah.
that would be so twisted. Sarah
would
Polley
be
made a
fun.
movie, and that is pretty much the only movie that I went home and I'm like, I'm going to take a bleach bath.
Well, Sarah Polley was in Go, so like
She
I'm not.
was.
That's
surprised.
not what was it? Was it called
I forget the name of
Splinter?
the
Was
movie
it
that-
called the one with
she-
the alien?
I didn't see it. I can't talk.
Oh my god, it was so disturbing. It was the only movie that perturbed me to my actual core. I will post about it later when I figure out what it is.
Paul is
as
madly trying to
far
search
as-
for it, I'm sure. He's like, hang on.
There's
I gotta
something
find
about an alien split. No, not split. Something
it
about
Splice?
or splice. Yes.
Oh man, she
I
she
got
made
myself
that
there.
one.
I'm pretty sure she was either in it
I know
or
she
directed
acted
it or
in it.
wrote. She was in
That-
it, but she might have maybe
Yeah.
she produced it. She's been doing a lot of producing.
Yeah, I know she. But yeah, that one is a disturbing one, especially the end.
Ugh,
Oh man,
Only
Ugh.
movie that made me want to bathe in bleach after watching it. On a happier note,
That's- yeah.
if you want to see an absurdly Canadian Dan Aykroyd movie that really came together very nicely, that he wrote, I think, produced, and also was in,
But didn't
White
direct
Coat.
because he only did this one. White Coats.
White
okay.
White
Coats.
Coat.
All right.
Katie and I love this movie.
I haven't seen that one.
No, it was only released in Canada.
It's not for
if
you.
you could find
It's on
it,
HBO.
It's on HBO.
maybe it's on
yeah.
HBO.
Maybe it's
It's not
on
for you,
It was
American.
It was
It's
like one of
not for
those-
you.
It was one of those like raunchy, like
I'm trying to
after like
remember
late
it.
night rom-coms,
My
God.
or not rom-coms, no rom, just comedies. It was one
Just
of those raunchy comedies about hospital interns, like doctor intern. It was kind of Grey's Anatomy.
You have
But
an
if
amazing
there were
memory.
lots
I
of
don't remember this one at
raunchy
all.
jokes. Katie,
2004.
we've watched it like 5 times.
I'm sure I remember if I started watching
it
it.
kind of
again,
had that like Mark Wahlberg joke.
Oh, okay.
Boogie Nights. That's what I'm
Yes.
thinking of.
Yeah, Boogie Nights.
Which I won't spoil that. Go watch Boogie Nights.
It
Last scene.
so it is in the States. It's called Intern Academy in the States. It's called White Coats in Canada.
White Coats in Canada. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try
There you
to
go. Intern
find
Academy.
that.
Try and find it. Anyway, so that was a Dan Aykroyd written and produced one. That was very funny. He was also in it. He was like the chief of medicine for these interns, and he was actually more preoccupied instead of making doctors, but bringing in like Ukrainian mail order brides. Instead of Russian mail order
sounds about
brides,
right.
Ukrainian mail order brides, very Canadian content. Like it was so funny, but very raunchy and inappropriate. I'm sure if I rewatched it, I'd be like, it's problematic, but it made us laugh quite a
Did
bit.
it come out in the 80s?
No,
No,
2004.
like 2000.
2000,
Yeah,
2004.
yeah. I was like, it's the
Four.
early aughts. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So look it up. It was really good. So Dan Aykroyd hasn't been slumbering. Like he hasn't just been
He's
making
fully-
tomato-based vodka.
Nope, he's fully embraced himself. If you can say one
Canadian.
thing about Dan Aykroyd is that Dan Aykroyd lives and breathes Dan Aykroyd. He's totally cool with who he is.
Yeah.
And there's something
Okay.
really admirable about that.
He pisses
Paul-
Crystal Skull vodka.
Yeah.
Paul is
has
fact checking
corrected
you.
me.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Sarah Polley only acted in Splice.
I know she's directed stuff. I don't know.
She
what
has.
movies she
She's
has.
won
But I know she
many
was
an
in
award for directing.
All I
But
see
she
when
doesn't
I think
direct
of
that kind of horror.
Sarah Polley,
She-
all I ever think about is Road to
Oh my
Avonlea.
God.
She was the little girl in the Anne of Green Gables like spin-off book TV show in Canada called Road to Avonlea. Speaking of nostalgia, they had like ads that came up on Instagram and it was like, you're from Canada. You must remember Road to
Why
Avonlea. And I was like, I do remember that, internet. And it was like, we'll sell you. We'll sell you all like 17 seasons of this show for like $100 Canadian. And I was like, absolutely. So like, it was like, you can't access this anywhere else. I'm like, I know, I've looked, and I think it was like $100, and I was like, yep,
Yeah.
let's do it. So I've been working my way.
I've looked on all the pirating sites. I have not found them at all. So you have my $100
you deserve
Canadian
this.
internet.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 100% on all the pirating sites,
Yeah.
but I don't
Nope.
know if
I don't like to
No,
break
you
the
don't know.
rules.
What are those?
dangerous
What
to
are
do
those? I
that.
know those.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't do that in America. I'm like, as long as I don't download and resell it in Canada, I'm good. Because somebody in Romania posted it, not
no
me.
one's
Not my
coming
fault.
after you.
I'm just saying VPNs exist.
Yeah, they do.
I
Well,
don't-
I
you
was
don't-
happy to pay the money. I was proud of Canada for holding that in their Disney-style bank and making me.
Do they
pay
have
money
a
for it.
Disney-style vault?
They do
Is
for
it
Road
like-
to
Yeah.
Avonlea. Like,
Is it like a
CCTV?
maple leaf
Yeah.
right there, and
Yeah,
the
maybe.
vault? It's coming out of the vault, folks.
yeah. Oh,
It's
here,
with
Paul.
it's with
Directed 10 and written 10. Sarah Polly.
Okay.
There we go.
We're terrible. We don't know.
All right,
which
we've gotten totally off track,
So
and we're here at the end.
We're
So now
nothing but trouble. Yeah.
we need to take everyone's votes. So we have people hanging out in the live studio audience. If you've seen this movie, or if we've swayed you, feel free to drop a rating in. You don't even have to have seen it. You can just put what you think it deserves. And
I'm gonna tell you, face value, not good. It's terrible. But
But we don't
talking
rate
about
based
it
on
and
that.
thinking about it, it's one of those movies, if you watch with friends, you'll be like, hey, this is so stupid it's funny, or hey, this might be a little bit of a think piece, but also is so stupid it's funny. And hey, it's kind of very inappropriate in so many different ways. You know, it hits on like racist stuff. What is that? One like leg bone.
one leg
I was gonna
bone
say, is that
with
a
meat.
leg bone with meat on it?
Yeah, one meat leg bone. Well
That-
played, Paul.
makes
Well
sense.
played.
One thing
Well
we did,
played.
and I wanted to ask you guys this: do you think that they're cannibals? Because if you noticed,
Yeah,
the Mr.
100%.
Bones thing happens, and they immediately have dinner with the hot dogs.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
they
yeah.
were.
And
Yeah.
I realized, I'm like, those guys are cannibals.
I mean, there's bones
I didn't think
everywhere.
that was a
so
question. I
assume-
thought that was obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
that's why I'm
never
like,
was
it's a
explicitly
cult.
said like that's it.
Yeah.
I went with cannibals.
Yeah. I'm like, again, where's the FBI?
They're in on it. They're
They're in on
totally
it.
Which
cool.
I
Yeah.
love.
Totally in on it.
So the FBI, to the listeners who haven't seen it, do comment like, well, they take care of things. It's just easier to let them do it. Like that's what the FBI stance was on it.
One hot
Oh,
dog,
man.
one penis nose, which isn't an emoji. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I was. I will spoil the fun and say we went with 3. I went with 3 because, and I rated this one, and then I forced Nat and Brian to agree with me. But I rated 3 because I feel like it's not a.
That's your review. That's not mine.
Yeah,
That's
Brian's like
yours.
7.
It is. It's my review too. Like I think 3 is solid. I think
Brian's
3
overruled.
No.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
No.
1 for me. It wasn't like I hated it, but I didn't love it. And I rate entirely on nostalgia and feels. So these are my feels. 3 potatoes for
Multiplicity
me.
was a 1 for me. Yeah.
Nat and I
It was
fought
a
about
1
that
for
one.
you.
I still like that one, even though I know it's bad.
I mean, I don't have any taters, but I'm just saying.
You can bring
if it
whatever
were
you want to
me-
the party, Brian.
If
doesn't have
it
to be
were
different.
me, I mean, we don't really do ratings on mine, but like, if it were me, I would say for your tater, what does it go from like 3
it goes from 1 to 5.
okay,
so-
so
Or
1
1
to 5,
to emotional ratings.
Yeah, sometimes we've
would-
done more.
I would give it probably a 4.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Me, I'd give it a 4 because I recognize fully well that there are some serious problems with the
Deep-seated
movie.
issues.
And it's like me and my 2 filmmaking degrees will tell you, yeah, there's some serious problems with it. But at the same time, little kid Brian, who had more hair back then, loved this film. Loved it. And like watching it again, I was like, yeah, penis nose. Yeah, he's taking his nose off. Oh yeah. I'm like, it's funny, you know? So I mean, it's wacky, it's goofy, it's a movie you turn your brain off to.
Yeah.
Like, that's honestly it. And it's one that like don't read too much into it. I think that's the best way to enjoy it.
Actively watching it, my grown-up part of my brain was like, where's the FBI? And is this a cult? And if this was
Can't-
more serious, it would be too
Can't do it.
dark. But then my 10-year-old brain was like, a poop moat.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong
That's
with those
funny.
movies. You can enjoy both.
Yeah. Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
Jimmy Hoffa apparently went missing here,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is kind of also super funny. I was like, A, where's the FBI? And B, like, Jimmy Hoffa, this is where he disappeared. This
He
is
turned into
so
a hot
good.
dog. Yeah.
Yeah, he turned into a hot dog.
Yeah.
Those
so
hot dogs
good.
were questionable. They were like gray in color.
Oh,
Well, when
they
they're made
were-
out of people, I mean, those are stadium franks, like before they brought
They
in
were-
night games.
They were
Yeah.
boiled, not steamed or grilled.
Well, we didn't convince the tater tots, but Paul's like,
Sorry.
okay, 3 because John Candy is in drag, and why not?
He's quite good in drag, I
He's quite
have
good
to
in drag.
say.
Yeah.
He had that cute little mole going on, like beauty mark. Like his little my character is mute. It was really funny and it was super subtle but really well done. Like that sort of inbred granddaughter situation.
Yeah.
Like who's going to take the, quote unquote good looking Chevy Chase as her husband by any means necessary. Like she had him shackled to a settee in her parlor. Like that was kind of camp and super funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt to me
See,
like
it's
a
a pride
return.
movie.
Well, the
No,
thing is, it felt
disagree.
to me like a return of the John Candy that, again, another forgotten terrible film. He was in Who's Harry Crumb? You ever
Yep.
seen that
I
movie?
have seen that one. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my god,
It's been a
so
while.
bizarro.
Yeah.
But it's the same sort of thing. Like, right? He's in
Yeah.
disguises in that movie. Plays a detective.
Mhm.
So it's like seeing a little bit of that in this, amidst all of his warm, cuddly version of himself that he had done in the early 90s. Like that was a nice thing for me, at least.
Well, we
Loved it.
haven't convinced Josh, so we're sorry,
No.
Josh.
Sorry, Josh.
Next
It's okay.
time.
Don't watch it, Josh.
But we-
Don't watch
But
it.
we did convince. We've piqued Kathy's interest. Okay, Kathy's gonna check
Kathy's
it out
gonna
soon.
unfollow us immediately
One
after
and-
watching this.
If we
One
had
and
my
one.
co-host here, we'd at least be evened out. Well, actually, no, I'd be outnumbered. Because my co-host John,
We're sad
he
you're not
doesn't
here,
like this movie.
John.
He doesn't like this movie.
He refused
There-
to come
and then-
on. He's like,
Well,
no.
that's not it at all. No.
Fair.
I think he got double booked, but
Oh, next
no,
time.
we originally were gonna do this this review on my show, but it kept getting pushed off.
Well,
and
there you
off, so,
go. We can share it on
when
your
you guys
show.
reached out, I was like, well, we got to do nothing but trouble, and of course, the son of a bitch isn't here. So
Well, you know what? You guys will just have to do us and have us on your show to
Yeah.
review it.
Yep.
there you go.
There you
He
go.
will be so surprised that we actually are kind of tickled by this
Yeah.
movie.
No, I'm gonna give you one of the Neil Breen films. That's what I'm gonna end up giving you. Is one of
Yes.
those terrible films.
Oh
That's
gosh.
amazing.
Okay, well, before
So
we
weird.
forget to say this, Brian, please.
Yeah.
So, Cinema Psychos podcast. Let us know where we can find it and watch it and consume it.
So we are on all of the podcast platforms. We are on TikTok at Cinema Psycho Show Pod. We're on Instagram. We're literally everywhere. Cinema Psycho Show. You just look us up. We're there. We're on YouTube now. We're now doing a lot of video stuff. Katie, you were on.
I know,
You
it's
talked
fun.
about Howard the Duck, and
Yeah.
that's something that we just started really doing late last year. Was doing full video episodes. We've
Mhm.
been around since 2016, and we have over 314 episodes. So there's
Yeah.
a lot to pick and choose from.
It's a lot of binge stuff. I've been binge listening to episodes on the weekends. I totally am like one of those. I'm cleaning the
Yeah.
house or making my coffee, and I have my headphones in, ignoring
Same.
everyone. I listened to your 300 episode, which made me.
Oh yeah,
It
that
was
was
so
a good
good.
one.
It was really good. I was
That was a
reliving
good
my 300 days. I loved that movie, and then I was listening to your episode. I was like, oh yeah, maybe I didn't.
I
really
was
like
in the
this as
same
much
boat.
as
I was like, I love this movie, and then you go watch it again. You're like,
Oh.
man, I don't love
Like-
this movie anymore.
All I remember of 300 is that it was filmed in Montreal, and I know most of the jocks in it. And
Yeah.
But it's
good
the
listen.
movie itself is about 10 minutes long. If you just get rid of all the slow motion shots,
yeah,
And you
yeah,
just-
yeah.
you put them in regular speed. It's 10-minute long movie. It's not. There's not a whole lot to it.
It's supposed to be a graphic novel, and they filmed it as if it was just screenshots from a graphic novel.
Yeah.
But
And there's
again,
nothing
I'm
wrong
like,
with
I
that, but
I dated some of those
execution.
guys. I'm out. They're all
No.
douchebags.
No. Some movies don't
But
age.
shout out
No,
to the
they
two
do
from New
not.
Hampshire that were in it.
Yeah. Well,
No.
if you like the show and want to keep hanging out with us more, we're doing we promised you last year we would do Independence Day on Independence Day, and then we didn't do that. And this year, Thursday is Independence Day, but it's Independence Day. So we're going to do a special episode on the 3rd about Independence Day. So if you want to rewatch that one with us, hang out with us on the 3rd, or you can watch it on the 4th, but we won't be here. We'll be
we did Independence Day and the sequel.
We have stuff to do.
Oh, nice.
We
All right,
have
great.
stuff to sequel.
We've got
Okay.
National Treasure next on deck for us.
Ooh, I love that
yes.
one.
That one, I think we're gonna try. We're recording that one tomorrow.
Ooh, good
so
luck.
that one, I
Right.
think we're gonna have that one out. I think Sunday.
I love
because
Nicolas Cage.
We've been sponsored by Manscaped now, so like we have to get an ad. We have to get like 4 ads out.
Yep.
And I'm like, we got to get this out by the end of the month.
Yep.
So coming out on the
Hey,
30th.
you could say from female audience that Manscaped is also good for female scaping too.
They do, and I mean,
A closer shave.
I got a coupon
And
code
it's
if you
cheaper
folks
than
want it.
female products.
I'm just saying, I got
Just
a coupon
saying.
code Cinema20.
Cinema
Nice.
20.
Nice. Because
Oh.
I'm just saying female products, similar female products are like 60% more just because there might be some pink on it.
'Cause they're
It's
pink,
called
yeah.
the pink tax.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would promote it to your female audience for sure.
Oh yeah,
Manscaped
no,
for sure.
that's a new thing for us. We've never had sponsors ever up until recently, and that was nice. They reached out to us too. That was a nice thing.
Well, Kathy
Nice.
loves National Treasure as well, and Kathy's another podcaster who
Love
talks
her.
about movies. So we should check out
Awesome.
Kathy's show too. But yeah, you have to Manscaped before recording. You got to get in there. Got to get in there before you record. Oh my gosh! Well, this was so much fun, Brian.
Just doing a little like trim,
Thank you so much for hanging out.
upper body trim.
Yeah,
An
yeah.
upper body
It's
trim.
always upper body. trim.
Yeah, upper body trim. Oh my gosh, what a blast. Well, say hi to John for us, and everyone
Will.
be sure to go over Cinema Psychos podcast. Check it out. It's such a fun show. It's been so fun having you on. We have all these guests that have been on. I'm still blown away. I really, it's always an honor when we get people hanging out with us
Oh,
who are
it was great coming on here. I always
actual
love-
film people who know more
Yeah.
than we do and are not just doing it for funsies. So it's
If you
fun.
do some slashers, definitely have us back
We love
on
some
your pod.
slashers.
That's
There's one-
October.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
We'll
I
come in
don't know
October.
if you've seen what was it? Oh my gosh. There was one, it was on Netflix. It was a B movie and it had one of the best like soundtracks I've ever heard, and it was so bad. Was it Trailer Park of Terror?
Trailer.
If
That
you
one I
haven't seen it,
seen.
find
No.
it. It is so good. And it was one that I actually paused in the middle of the movie, and the
Yeah.
group of people I was watching it with like, we need a smoke break. I don't smoke, and I needed a smoke break.
You need a
It
fresh air
was
break.
so it was so good. Trailer Park of Terror, find that. I will be on that.
Yeah. We usually end up going to Erie Horror Fest in Erie, Pennsylvania. We're kind of like the standing podcast that goes up there, and we end up batch recording all of our like October content
So
at there. We've had
cool.
interviews with like, you know, we had interviewed Mark Pellington last year, who was the director of Mothman Prophecies.
Oh, cool.
And we interviewed George Romero's daughter and
Oh, wow.
his wife, his widow.
Brian's kind of a big
yeah.
deal, you guys. Just saying.
I don't know.
That's badass.
I'm a big deal with the Manscaped crowd apparently, but yeah, I mean, I'm just, you know, we do a lot of movie stuff on my show, and
Yeah.
it's
But
it's
yeah,
nice to see it translate to talking to, you know, film people and other film podcasts too. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely love that. I'm subscribing for sure.
Yeah,
It's
Josh
like
says he's into.
super
He's
like-
always swinging over.
Katie and I used to have like horror movie Tuesdays like
Mhm.
Yeah.
every week of our life when we lived
Mhm.
together for several years. So yeah, we're very down for that.
And now I'm in a house in a city where no one wants to watch horror movies with me. No one likes them but Nat. So I'm by myself. It's not as much fun watching it by yourself. So we'll have to. We
Nah,
need to
you
get
gotta-
our.
you gotta do, you know what we gotta do is gotta do virtual like watch night
That's
parties.
so. That is what I'm trying to
A
set up.
Discord
So
night.
Val and Paul and a couple of our other fans and friends have been suggesting that on Discord, and I haven't been techie enough to figure out exactly how to get a watch party to work internationally, like with
In
being able to rent the
Canada.
movie and get to work in Canada. But I'll figure it out.
I can point you in that direction. I have
All
a
right.
friend who is also a movie podcaster. He's the Movie Dumpster podcast.
Oh, awesome.
And they do watch parties all the time, and it's something that I've wanted to do too.
I want to do Wednesday watch parties. It's got a name. We're there.
There you go.
We just got to figure out the tech side. I'll take you up on that. Definitely connect me. That would be great. That would be great.
Adding it to my list.
And that's like
Movie
writing
Dump Podcast.
writing it down. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all of the Tater Tots for hanging out with us in the live studio
thank you.
audience. If you want to hang out with us, we're here most Thursday nights. Next week's Wednesday because of the 4th and the 1st if you're in Canada, celebrating Canada Day. And we got we're actually ahead of the game, everyone, which is really new for us. So we've got episodes scheduled out so you can kind of see what the upcoming ones are. We've got some fun guests joining us. We've got some fun movies on deck. And we eventually are going to get to Ruthless People because Nat said we're not.
Eventually.
So we're going to get to Ruthless
It's our
People.
white whale.
It's our
Every
whale.
time we
The
say
white
we're going
whale.
to do Ruthless
Yeah.
People, something happens, and we keep watching it and never review it.
Yeah. But I
love
watched
the
it.
movie.
So
I don't think
review
I've
it.
ever seen Ruthless People.
Please go see Ruthless People,
Oh
and then
my
you can join
God.
us for the episode.
Dan Aykroyd, Bette Midler.
No, not
what's
Dan
his name?
Aykroyd. Not Dan Aykroyd.
Not Dan Aykroyd.
You're in Dan Aykroyd
Danny
mind.
DeVito.
Danny
Wow,
DeVito.
not even close.
Okay.
Starts with a D.
Danny
Natalie.
DeVito. Yeah,
Judge
now it's
Reinhold.
yep, Judge Reinhold. Yep. It's a
Midler.
good
Oh
one.
my God, it's so funny.
It's
Oh,
a very
so
like
camp
dark
and so
comedy.
stupid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
camp.
that's right up my alley.
Yeah.
I love dark comedies. That's
Yeah.
that's literally one of my favorites.
Kathy's like, promises,
Kathy does
promises.
not believe
I
it.
know, Kathy. I'm so with you.
Mhm.
My nephew was born when we were supposed to do it,
Mhm.
like around that time. So like, there was a newborn human and the podcast. The baby won. He's so squishy.
Our promise to you is most Thursdays, so that's the promise is most, not all, most.
Often
Most
on Thursday.
Thursday.
Most Thursdays.
Me, I don't. I try to hold to a schedule, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah, see, it's a
It does
podcasting thing.
And
It is.
it
podcast.
works.
Yeah, that's the way it works. But
Yeah.
we appreciate everyone, and we will see you again on Wednesday or the following Thursday.
Third. For the
See ya.
fourth.
For the 4th, the 3rd for the 4th.
Third for the
Bye,
fourth.
everyone. See you next
Bye.
time.
Kidnapped